Tensions are growing between Duluth Mayor Emily Larson and some city councilors. In December, the mayor proposed a property tax increase to help avoid city budget cuts, but the council voted to lower her proposed increase. Now that it looks like cuts are going to be needed, the mayor went before the council today, asking them to reconsider. Northern News Now's Cara Kopp was at the meeting that featured some tense exchanges.
Some tough conversations Thursday evening inside council chambers. Councilor Roz Randorf airing her displeasure with how the mayor communicated potential budget cuts to the public.
But you can imagine my surprise when cuts were announced on Thursday and broadcast on TV before the council got a chance to hear what they were specifically.
Randorf addressing the mayor's latest pitch to now use pandemic relief money to avoid big cuts across departments, including police, fire, and utilities.
This committee was even more surprised when we received an email from Mayor Larson on Monday asking us to reverse our decision in December and instead use $382,950 of American Rescue Act money over 4 months into the fiscal year.
Some councilors like Randorf call the use of ARP money a temporary fix to a long-term problem and are strongly opposed. The mayor disagrees.
But no 1% cut is, to me, the right budget for any one of the departments or organization. So, hence bringing forward an opportunity with ARP funds.
Despite the pushback from some councilors, the mayor is standing by this new proposal and says while the council may not like when or how her new plan was unveiled, it's what she felt was necessary.
I would have much preferred for it to feel neater and cleaner, but that's just not how it's going, and there's no intent around that.
In Duluth, Cara Kopp, Northern News Now.
And in the meantime, to soften the blow of the budget cuts, councilors are looking to use other strategies like local government aid money from the state. They hope to receive at the end of this legislative session. However, if that aid doesn't come from the state and no ARP money is used, there will be deep cuts, including $72,000 slashed from the fire department, $98,000 from police, and $39,000 from public works. Those are the estimates. We'll keep following these developments.